Between the rise of the Kimrog Empire and the tumultuous Demon Wars, there was an enigmatic era. A time when brave souls traversed oceans and continents in search of glory, riches, and power. Let us tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hello and welcome to High Adventure. We are here and the brothers are in the point where they have been summoned. If you didn't catch their prequels, I will summarize briefly. Each one of the brothers, Shao, Cade, and Zhen, have all been summoned. They've received a mysterious missive from their father, Lu Wei, to return home urgently for important family business. And heeding the call, all three of the brothers returned to the city of Shao, which is one of the largest cities, a metropolis truly, on the continent of Sacura. And so each one of you guys have not been home in 4 years. It's been a while. And in many ways, as you return from each of the three different directions that you guys were coming from north, west, and south, as you guys arrive, there are some familiar sights. You see a few of the great towers and temples looming in the distance, the city walls. Some of those are very familiar, but you also notice there's kind of a different feel. It seems as if a lot of people are on edge. You notice more guards along the walls and the city gates than you've seen. You notice more traveling constables, and it just seems like the defenses are a bit heavier than when you left. And you notice that although the city is still bustling, that people just there's kind of an air of uncertainty and a little bit of a vibe of anxiety in the air. And each one of you guys make your way through this city that you grew up in, but yet now after 4 years seems a little bit different. And you come to the Noble District where your family's home is located, a very upscale neighborhood within the city. Almost every walled estate is a glorious, beautiful example of the architecture of Sacura. The buttressed roofs rising up one atop the other, colorful tile work and painted woodwork abounds. And you guys come to the gate, strangely enough, at the same time. Shao, you see your younger brothers coming down the road towards the family's front entrance. And your brother Cho looks a bit bigger, a bit more grown up. He's lost the baby face that he once had. And he looks truly more like a man now. His hair is a bit longer. Your brother Cade looks a little bit rough, like you. Looks like he's seen a few things in the world since you saw him 4 years ago. And both Cho and Cade, you see your older brother, and you almost don't recognize him. For one, his clothing is that of a commoner, and he has, just an unshaven, kind of grizzled look. His hair is just kind of a tangled mess. And his face is covered in bruises and cuts, as if he's been in a fight recently. But as you look past this demeanor, you see, despite his disheveled appearance, your older brother, Shao, still carries himself with an air of nobility, his shoulders pulled back, his chest out. and he kind of strides confidently towards the family compound. And you three brothers meet outside of the front gate of your family's compound.
Brother, it's been a while.
It's been too long.
Far too long.
How have you been? Please catch me up.
It's been worldly. It's challenging. There's been mistakes made in my part. What is all this? Does anyone know what's going on?
We have not received word. I am very confused.
All I got was a message to come back home, and here I am.
It was quite urgent.
Anybody seen mother or sister?
Just got here just like you.
Shall we go in together?
1 second before we go in, let's fix that face up of yours. And I'm gonna touch my brother's shoulder and cast Cure Wounds.
You do. And both Cho and Shao, you are surprised when your brother Cade emanates this. You're not sure if it's a divine force or some kind of magic, but Shao, you feel healed and your bruises fade away. Your skin takes on its normal color. You feel restored. And in fact, the hangover that you've been fighting this whole past couple days, the headache is gone. You feel healthy.
What's
Hey,
in that medicine?
Much
We
better.
must discuss this newfound power of yours, brother.
Afterwards, let's go inside.
That was quite amazing.
As
Thank
you guys ring the bell, there's a small bell mounted on a wrought iron hook outside of the gate to your family's compound. You wait for a few moments and you hear some shuffling. And it sounds like the sliding of wood, perhaps like some kind of deadbolt behind the family gate, which is odd because you don't remember the family gate being deadbolted ever before. There was also, always like a simple latch, but this sounds like heavy wood being moved. And you hear the sound of somebody like kind of struggling a little bit with it, like, and then you hear the gate creak open and you see a very familiar and warm face. That of Obai Kwan, your father's most faithful servant and the steward of your family's household. He looks elated and surprised to see you. His old, bald, wrinkled head, kind of his eyes squinting as if he couldn't even believe that these three young men standing outside of the gate are the very boys who he used to have to chastise to stay out of his mother's garden. And he smiles and he looks out at you and he's like, "Oh, you have returned, my sons. This is excellent. Your father will be most pleased. He has been expecting you. Welcome home. Yes, come in. Welcome home." And
It's so good to see you.
he smiled warmly. You guys notice that he always seemed old to you, but he looks really old, like as if in the past few years, just time has caught up to him. He seems more frail. You notice that like as he walks, he's kind of a bit slower, but he walks ahead of you towards the house. And you guys go into the compound and you notice that the gardens are all still there, pretty much as you remember them. There's several beautiful jade bushes that your mother has tended to for decades that grow magnificently. Some beautiful plum trees and cherry blossom trees kind of decorating the landscape alongside some very ornate water gardens. And there's like little lilies and flowers growing along these water gardens. And that warm, familiar feeling of home returns to you as you guys stride forth across your family's compound. Your family home looms ahead of you, and you see the door is not open. it seems like as you get closer, the family home could use a little bit of work. You see some of the paint on the woodwork is kind of chipped in places here and there. Some of the roof tiles as you get closer are a little bit cracked, a little bit worn down. And Obai kind of leads you guys up to the front door, and he opens the door, and he goes inside and gestures for you to come inside. And you guys enter the front entrance, and there's a beautiful open foyer, and a very ornate set of stairs that greets you leading up to the second floor, which you fondly remember as boys, seeing how high up you could go on the stairs and jump down. And it almost brings you back for a moment as you stand in the foyer. This flood of memories comes back, and you remember when your older brother Shao tried to jump all the way down the stairs, and he broke his ankle when he was 10 years old. But his fearlessness is what you remember most. And as you guys are standing in the foyer, Obai Kwan walks off towards the room which you know to be your father's study. And he slides the door frame open, and he bows and he says, "Master, your sons have returned." And you hear the voice of your father. "Bring them in, please." And
I'm gonna
Obai
go
Kwan
last.
turns. Obai Kwan turns and he says, "Your father is waiting for you." He bows. Who goes in first?
The eager youngest son. Father, look who's
Right.
here.
You kind of stride in confidently. Your father's office looks very much the same. He has an enormous desk covered in paperwork, and behind him are intricate built-in shelves with amazing scroll work in the wood and intricate carvings along the frames of the shelving. Although a bit dusty looking. And your father stands up from his desk and moves around to greet you. You notice, first of all, that your father also, these past 4 years, seem to have changed him. He looks older. You notice when he stood up, but that imposing figure of fatherhood that once symbolized, that was once like a mountain to you when you were boys, that he's really just a man, and a man with a slight figure. And you can see the age. His hair is now where it was gray when you were, before you guys left. It is now just totally white hair. And he stands and walks over to you and takes your hand in his hand, and he smiles and he says, "My son, it is so good that you have come home.
I am sorry I've been gone so long.
Please sit." And he sees Cade in the doorway, and he smiles and he says, "Ah, there he is. My curious son, come."
Walk in.
And he takes your hand in his, and he says, "Thank you for returning home. I am quite pleased to have you here, my son.
It's good to see you too, Father."
Please sit." And then he looks past Cade, seeing Shao standing in the foyer, and his face changes a little bit. His smile as he sees Cade sitting down next to Cho, he turns and he's like, "Oh, Shao Zhen, I'm glad that you've come. Come inside, sit." And close the door behind you. He turns and he sits down at his desk. And he begins ruffling through a sheaf of paper. as Shao comes in and closes the door. He brings these papers up and he stands and he comes over to sit across from the three of you. And you are now kind of circled in these chairs. And there's sort of a short table. And he lays these papers out on the table and he says, "My sons, I have summoned you urgently because we have important matters to discuss related to our family and our family's future." And he looks at each one of you, and his gaze lingers upon Shao for a little bit longer. Over a year ago, I invested with a prominent clan in a new colony being formed. The colony is located in Nisia, which, as you know, is a place of many opportunities. And I see our family potentially gaining greatness and expanding our holdings and our wealth in this colony. In the past year, I have received updates from the Osari clan, who have informed me that the land which I have invested in is indeed fertile and will be very suitable for a number of different agricultural endeavors. As well, my investments have also been fruitful, and they have secured property within a village of a very established settlement on this island. Now, my sons, it is important that you understand this. Since you have been out in the countryside, I am not sure how much you have kept up with news amongst the nobility, but you have probably heard of these Kemrog. The Kemrog have sent delegates to Sacura. They would like to begin trade. But as you can imagine, the Imperial family is quite wary of these Kemrog, as they have been known to become very aggressive in a very short amount of time, and it is uncertain whether or not they can be trusted. There have been some incidents in other port cities, and even along the coast, with Kemrog parties coming to Sacura. And whether it will be fruitful to form some kind of partnership with them, or if this could be the early signs of a coming conflict, I am not certain. But I do know this. A wise man must ensure his family's survival through a diverse portfolio. And it is my intent to do that very thing with our family. And so I have called you home for this very task. I have decided that our family shall move to this colony to ensure our family's holdings there, to build a new life there, and to diversify our family's prosperity.
Father, we've been here for centuries. Is it wise to move?
I believe it is, my son.
I stand up and I walk away from the area we were sitting in and start pacing back and forth.
He looks at you. You can see his eyes. Cade and Cho, you can see your father's eyes kind of straining a bit at your brother's actions, but he returns and looks towards both of you and says, I believe that this is an opportunity, my sons. an opportunity for our family to expand beyond the shores of Sacura. Now, it is my intent to send our family to claim our holdings, as the Osari clan has properly provided for us in my investment terms. He refers to the paperwork that he has, and he shows you several sheafs of paper. These are the deeds to my holdings on the island of Amron. These deeds secure our agricultural properties, our land, and these deeds secure the property and land which we have purchased already in the village that is nearby to our agricultural holdings. This is a vast estate. It is 10 times the size of our holdings here in Shao. Our family's investments in these colonies will benefit us tenfold, easily. Each one of you could become kings in your own right. I have done this for our family's future and for our family's name. Now, there is the matter of your mother and sister. As I will send you forth to this colony to establish our family there with your mother and sister, it is of course essential that you escort them, and I will provide you with the funding to establish and build our family home once you arrive. And he stands and he walks over to his desk and pulls out a key, and he opens up a drawer, and you hear him pull out several sacks and set them on top of his desk. And these are huge, heavy, thick cloth sacks. And he sets them down and he says, "This will be more than suitable. From what the Osari clan has told me, the cost of building materials on these colonies is very cheap, and there are numerous craftsmen looking for work. We should be able to build a more than sufficient home for our family there. And as well, to begin construction on the farms, to hire farmers, to purchase the farming equipment that will be necessary, to build granaries, and so forth. Now, this is only for the establishment of our holdings on this colony. I must stay back to shore up some of the business that I have here prior to departing to join you, which I estimate will take a few months. Now rest assured, my sons, I am not selling all of our family's holdings here. You will always have a home in Sacura. And I have been working with Obai Kwan to hire retainers who will take care of our home and our property. Obai Kwan is too old to make the journey to Nisia. He will stay here to oversee the family property and train a younger man to become a steward to take his place. Now, I know that I have revealed quite a bit of news to you, but I wanted your arrival to be clear and the reason for my calling to be manifestly clear. This is something that our family will do, and it is something that I expect you, my sons, to carry on. And you will benefit from it. Your future will be prosperous from the wisdom of my investments. Now, we will have supper in a few hours. Go, see your mother and your sister, and I will see you at supper. And he gestures to the door.
Stand up and I walk to the door.
Okay, Cade, You walk out, Shao. You walk out.
I stay behind.
I figured. He looks at you and he says,
And
my
I close
oldest
the door.
son, tell me,
Father.
how goes your studies at the monastery?
The monastery was short-lived, Father.
Judging by your appearance, my son, I can see that. Even the lowliest monk conducts themselves in a more noble fashion.
Yes, I can't live up to your expectations, but I fared well. I don't need riches to survive. I live within my bubble. What is this all about?
It is about our future, our family's prosperity.
You mean your
But
future?
perhaps for you, my son, perhaps it is about redemption.
Redemption. You want a legacy. You look to us to continue it without asking if it's something that we want to do. Just like you try to offer me a hand in marriage to the nobleman. And then when I didn't follow suit, you sent me to the monastery like it was nothing. And you expect me to come back and continue your work. All this time, you didn't reach out. Not that I made it clear where I was, but nothing, no word. At least to update us on mother and sister. You always took care of yourself before everyone else, so that's it to be expected.
Yes,
And
you
now,
are right.
and now you want us to leave and establish something
Precisely.
new.
Precisely that.
For whose benefit?
For whose benefit? Did you
True.
think, Shao Zhen, did you think that when I was 16 years old and my father arranged the marriage with your mother, did you think that I wanted to marry a woman who I'd never met? Did you think that I wanted to have the responsibility, after my brothers both died in the war, of carrying on our family's name and our family's business and maintaining their holdings? Did you think that I did not have aspirations as a young man as well? Are you so foolish to not see what is plain? Everything that I have done in my life, I have done for our family, which includes you and your brothers and your sister. Your sister will not be married to any noble family with our family's current standings. We must.
Maybe she doesn't want to be married to a noble. Maybe
She
she's
has no
content.
choice. She has no choice. And if she is to be married to a noble family, we must improve our holdings. Our prosperity must be engaged. Our future must be secured. And I have done this. I have worked tirelessly. I have invested with the Osari clan, and they, as you well know, are among the most powerful of the noble families in the Empire. It was not an easy task to convince them to allow me as a partner, given our social standing after your refusal to marry Quan Chin. Now, I have had enough of your childish games. By our family's honor, you will do as I have asked. You will support your brothers and their future, even if you wish to squander yours. If that is your choice, so be it, but you will go to this colony and secure our family's future. After that, I do not care what you do. Spend your time drinking rice wine and passing out in alleys if that is your desire. But do this thing for our family.
I'll do it for mother and sister. Gives me no pleasure to do anything for you, as you abandoned me and kicked me out. But I will do this and see it through. And to my brother's commitment to you, I will follow them and help them secure their profits and their future, as you did not look into the best interests of my future. And I get up and I walk out.
He stews silently at his desk. Just his like there's like a vein in his head of just relentless anger and frustration. You walk out. Your brothers, you can hear your brothers down the hall. Smash cut. Shao and Cade, you walked down the hall after you left your father's office. And as you were walking down the hall, you heard raised voices. You kind of figured what was happening because you know that your father and your oldest brother did not part ways on good terms. So you guys kind of make your way down the hall and you open up into the family room and you see your mother rise up from a sofa. And her face like is just awestruck. And she shuffles towards you and brings both of you into a huge embrace. And she's just tears of joy streaming down her face. And she's like, my sons have returned. Oh, my beautiful boys. And she kisses both of you on the head and holds you tight. And then she kind of stands back and she's like, oh, my baby. And she looks at Shao and puts her hand on your cheek and she's like, you are a man. And there's my curious and kind dreaming son. And she puts her hand on Cade's cheek and she's like, you boys are so big now. She's like, come sit with me. And she rings a small bell and you see two younger servants come out with a tray of pastries and fruits and a big ceramic ornately decorated kettle of tea and fine cups, and she begins pouring out the tea for you guys, and she starts kind of asking you about what you've been up to. So, Cade, tell me, what have you been up to, my son? What have you been doing all of these years?
I'll take up some fruit and the cup of tea that she's poured, and well, I've been out in the wilderness myself, been exploring, interacting with animals and nature.
You were always our most curious son.
I picked up a lot of things along the way. Maybe I can show you some of those skills later.
Of course. Did you see my jade bushes? They are still healthy. And my cherry blossom tree.
Beautiful as ever, Mother.
We will have to spend some time in the garden, son, just like we used to when you were a boy.
Oh, I can't wait, Mother. Thank you.
And you, my son, Shao, how are you? You seem
well,
quite
Mother.
fit.
Life has been quite interesting away from home.
Yes.
I have had to learn many different skills in order to survive. But I see that there's no love lost between Father and Shao.
You see she looks down. She's like, I surmised that this would happen. But I assume that your father has spoken to you about this colony and his holdings there.
Yes, how do you feel about this?
I am uncertain. I have only known Sacura as my home. But your father has worked diligently, and he has made great strides with some of the most noble clans connected to the imperial family.
I respect Father as a nobleman, but must we have everything? Do we need to extend our holdings so much to where it tears us away from our home?
My son, as you have both probably heard by now, there are whispers amongst court that this Camrog come with ill intent.
Then why not stay and fight?
There are many who whisper of the possibility of war. against these lizard-like creatures. I feel that your father is following the wisdom of many of the other noble clans. The Osari clan was among the very first to set out and begin diversifying their holdings in Nisia. And it is said that a great portion of their family's wealth within the last 30 years has been the fruits of those colonial holdings. The colonies are ripe for development, and those families with the resources and the connections can grow in their prosperity tremendously.
Mother, please, I love you, but this feels like we are running.
We are not, my son, I assure you. And remember that though Nisia is a distant travel, that there are trade ships that have been coming back and forth between Nisia and Sacura for several decades now.
I will do whatever is required of me.
At the Spring Cherry Blossom Festival, I was honored to be invited to the home of the Osari clan and speaking there with the matron herself. I have been told that the islands in Nisia are beautiful. Their weather is gorgeous at all times, and these fertile lands and mountains, rich with minerals and ores, are unclaimed for the most part. My sons, if you do as your father has asked, our family could have a new life full of prosperity, and your sons someday may be kings amongst those islands. And you will always have a home here. Your father has ensured this. He has worked very hard in the last year to develop all of these plans. And so I am bittersweet, of course, about leaving our family home. But we may return to it and visit, of course. And perhaps more importantly, if our family is blessed with many fortunes, our prosperity may grow in the next few years. You may marry and have children. Your sister may marry, and she may even marry into a nobler family high above our family's rank, if we are fortunate enough and prosperous enough with your father's investments in these colonies.
Yes. Well, we are here. We have heeded the call and we are home. We will do whatever is required of us.
I am so happy to have my boys home.
Now,
And
where is my sister?
As she says that, and as you ask, the door opens and you see Shao Zhen kind of storm into the room. Shao Zhen, you are in the family room, which is beautiful, but you remember it differently. It looks as if maybe your mother has redecorated it recently. But you see your mother, who still looks as beautiful as she had, though a bit older, but certainly not with the same stress and aged appearance as your father. Her hair is beautifully coiffed back up and is ornately put into multiple buns and wrapped with braids, and there are two hair picks kind of holding everything in place, and she has like this elegant silk robe, and she stands and she says, "My firstborn son, come to me." And she goes over to you.
And I grab her hand and I place it on my cheek and I give her a kiss on the forehead. And I say, "It's been too long, Mother. You look as radiant as ever."
She holds her hand to your cheek and she says, "My son, please come sit with me." And she brings you over to the settee where she was sitting across from your brothers, and she pours you a cup of tea. And she looks at all three of you and she says, I am so pleased to have my sons home. And as she says that, the door opens again. And you see a girl who looks a little bit different. It's your little sister, but she's 16 and she kind of looks like a young woman. And she's dressed kind of like your mom. Gone are the days where she had tangled, messy hair and, dirt marks all over her face and her hands. She's like elegant, and she carries herself elegantly, and she comes into the room and she smiles and she bows, and your mother stands and your mother says, Come, Li Mei, your brothers have returned. And the girl smiles just very calmly. And then she just cracks and runs over and jumps onto you, like basically tackles your couch and just is like crying and laughing. And she's like, my brothers, you are home. Oh,
Who is this young woman?
And she's laughing, and she's like, and she goes to Cade and she's like, who is this scruffy man in our home, mother? I don't know these men. And then she looks at Cho and she says, oh, here's my big brother. And she ruffles your hair. And
Who's this elegant young woman here?
She's like, elegant young woman indeed. I'm to be married in 4 years, and I'm going to marry the emperor's son. And your mother laughs.
Wow.
High expectations, little sister.
And she looks over at Shao Zhen and she stands up and she walks over to Shao Zhen and she says, is that my big brother, or did you find some old man sitting outside who was hungry and needed tea, mother? And she ruffles your ear. She ruffles your hair.
And I pull her in and I look at her. You are not getting married anytime soon to no nobleman.
Oh yes, I am. And she starts like gently hitting you and punching you. And your mother laughs, and you see this like contentment on your mother's face, like she hasn't had this lightness in a long time. And you guys sit together for a few hours. You kind of tell your mom what you want to tell her and your sister, sharing the experiences carefully. And they kind of tell you what life has been like in the last 4 years. They tell you that, things have changed in the last few years with the Kemrog emissaries, and there's a general feeling of concern all over Sacura about this new nation of Kem and what it might mean to have interaction with them. They also tell you of how, the families, the very few families of Sacura who had the resources and the wealth and the means to start up colonies in Nisia, all have become extremely powerful and influential, all of whom are now in the inner circle of the imperial family. Hours go by. You guys go for a walk around the estate. Your mother goes out to the gardens. I mean, you basically just kind of like hang out with the family. You play some games with your sister. She loves playing dice games and stuff, and you guys kind of have fun just hanging out, relaxing. And then Obai Kwan calls all of you and tells you that dinner is ready. You guys go into the family dining room. You see the table is fully set. And it's growing up, you knew that when your parents were entertaining, that they used a certain quality of place settings and silver and their best glassware and their best china. And you see all of this stuff is out for you guys. There is a banquet level feast laid out, banquet level. And your father, and I'm sorry. And during the downtime, by the way, Obai Kwan brought all of you in turn for baths and cleaned up all of you. Like he's like, you young men must be clean for your father's dinner tonight. So you guys are all cleaned up. You're at the dinner table, and your father has a guest as well, who he introduces you to as Jin Kwan Osari. And Jin Kwan is a member of the Osari clan who is very wealthy now and who is involved in shipping. So you're at the dinner table. Your father's discussing his plans to have his sons now and his wife and daughter to travel to their holdings in Nisia, to the island of Amron, and to begin building their future. And Jin Kwan just regales you guys with these incredible stories of, you know, these rich, fertile islands that are just basically ripe for development. He tells you about some of the Osari clan's holdings and how they have just developed mining operations, and some of these mining operations are just yielding just load after load of incredibly valuable things: minerals, gems, ores, gold, silver, everything. So you know, most of the night is just kind of like discussing that sort of thing. And then your father says, "My sons, as I have mentioned earlier, have made arrangements for our family to travel safely to Nisia. And Jin Kwan has generously suggested an appropriate ship and an experienced captain who regularly makes the journey in his shipping company between Nisia and Sacura. So, Jin Kwan, thank you. Our family is very grateful for your family and your clan. And our partnership will benefit everyone, I am certain." And Jin Kwan is like, "Yes, indeed. I must tell you, sons of Lu Wei, you will be wealthy and powerful. Your family's holdings will grant you a future full of all of your dreams coming true. Truly the gods have watched over us, as we Sacurans have been most blessed with fortune and prosperity in this new world of Nisia. I wish that I were making the journey with you, just so that I could see your faces light up when you see your family's vast holdings. I am sure your father has shown you the deeds to your family's new lands. They are tenfold the expanse of your family's holdings here in Sacura. I dare say your first yield from the harvest season will probably be bountiful enough to feed all of Sacura." And your father laughs and your mother laughs.
Inside check on his authenticity.
Oh, snap! The first dice roll, the first die of the game.
I recognize a sales pitch when I hear one.
The patent leather shoes are involved with plaid pants.
You feel like what he's saying is quite truthful. And you're fairly certain about this man being like what he says he is, and that the claims that he's making are truthful.
I look over at the brothers and just stare at him for about a couple of seconds, and then I look at father. So if this celebration is to go off, we need more wine. If the fruit is bearing, let's drink and commemorate this new adventure for the family's name. And I look at father.
Lu Wei,
Say,
he nods at you and he says, "Well, of course. Obai Kwan, the men and I will meet in the parlor. Please bring wine. Come, Jin Kwan, please join me and my sons. Let us celebrate." And Jin Kwan's like, "It would be my honor, Lu Wei."
I look over
So-
at Mother just to see her expression.
Your mother
The
and your
conversation
sister,
went.
your mother and your sister conduct themselves with the utmost of etiquette. They stand and they both bow to Jin Quan and they bow to your father, and then they walk out first. Obai Kwan leads you guys into the parlor, and you see laid out in the parlor, you have wine glasses, the small cups, elegantly painted, every detail elegantly painted. You know that these are like your father's like best selection. Like he only brings these out for like the highest level guests. So you guys and your father and Jin Quan all sit down and begin drinking, and your father raises the first toast and he says, "To my sons and my family and your future prosperity." Ching. And he drinks the toast and takes a sip. Jin Quan then, as the next oldest man in the room, raises his cup and he says, "To the Osari clan and the Zhen family, may our partnership bring greater fortunes for all of our children." Yes. Oh, and you clink glasses. And then your father looks at you, Shao Zhen, expecting your toast. And he waits.
This has been an enlightening conversation, to say the least. A lot has been brought to our attention. And I look at Jin Quan and I look at him and I say, what is this profitability costing our family to the commitment to your clan?
Brother, just toast. There'll be time for this later.
It's an honorable question. We don't know what we're going in. We just arrived. There's a lot more questions than what Father has stated to us. It's only reasonable to assume that we need more information. And since Jin Quan has been already established in Nisia, it's good to know. And I'm thankful for being here. And I'm thankful that Father reached out finally.
Ooh, that last bit might have just taken you off the hook. Go ahead and make a persuasion roll. Let's see if your father loses his mind or if he keeps it cool.
Well done.
I wish I could take a picture, but I rolled a natural 19.
Wow. All right. So during that speech, your father's eyebrows were like twitching and like the anger vein on the side of his head was coming out. But then you kind of pulled it together at the end and your father was like, "Yes, cheers." And everybody clinks their glasses. There's a little bit of tension in the air. Jin Quan downs his and he sets it down on the table and he looks at your father and he says, "Your son is very astute, Lu Wei. I will answer your question with your father's permission." And you see your father nod. And Jin Quan turns to you, Shao. Your father very wisely invested in the Osari clan's enterprises in the colonies. His investment allowed the Osari clan to purchase these holdings for your family. And it is more than merely a transaction, you understand. There was a great deal of land surveying, a great deal of negotiating with the locals on this island, and then the negotiations for the purchases. All of these were handled by the Osari clan, by my family. And for this, we, the Osari, have partnered with your father. The yield from your lands will be repaid to the Osari clan for ours with interest of 30% in the first 5 years of your family's holdings. And after these 5 years, we will only take 10% of your family's holdings. Now, this may sound like a large number, but I assure you, the yield from your family's lands in Nisia would be tenfold of your family's annual income here in Sacura. So really, the cost of doing business, Shao Zhen, is very reasonable.
And who currently, if I may ask, is monitoring the development and the progression of my family's lands?
Well, that is what you and your brothers will be doing.
So this
All
is
of the
just
deeds,
a mere
all of the
conversation?
paperwork, all of the deeds and paperwork have been established on the island of Amaron. And therefore, you should have absolutely no problems when you arrive. You will go to the village of Drock, and your ability to have your lands shown to you will be provided there. The magistrate has land surveyors, and the village clerk will show you your property in town, which your father has purchased. Now, I personally have not been to Amaron, but my emissaries have scouted it for our own family's investments, and we may be opening a mining operation on that island as well.
I turn to my brothers, and in a perfect voice match for our father, I say, "Father knows best. Listen to what he says and let's do our job."
I lean over and I look at Cho.
Cho, you guys know that as the youngest brother, your brother Cho was always able to get away with a little bit more when it came to your father, partially because he kind of had this funny sense of humor and this ability to kind of mimic people's voices and impersonate people really well, which your father, despite his stiff demeanor, always found to be entertaining. And so as the night wears on, you guys have a few more drinks. Jin Quan looks to your father and he says, "I am glad to have met your sons, and I wish you and your family nothing but the utmost fortune and prosperity. Captain Fu, as your father mentioned," and he looks to you guys, "is one of my very best captains, and his ship, the Celestial Queen, has made the journey back and forth between Nisia and Sacura dozens of times. He is extremely competent, and I am certain that your travels to Nisia and that of your mother and sister will be comfortable and expedient, and of course, safe. So I wish you well, and I look forward to seeing you in the future." And he bows. Your father stands and bows. And Obai Kwan takes Jin out. And your father is left with you guys, and he tells you, "My sons, I know some of you have concerns about this venture of our family." And he looks to Shao, and he says, "But I want you to understand that as I have done and my father before me, I have taken on the task of trying to ensure our family's legacy. And perhaps these investments in this new world of Nisia will increase our family's fortunes and prosperity and make it possible for you and your children to have a much better future. A future where your wealth and influence will be so great that you can choose to do whatever it is that you want to do." And he looks again to Shao. "But I need to know that I can trust my sons, to whom I have appointed this task."
Father, you can trust me to keep our family safe and to demonstrate this skill, which I'm only showing you all for the first time since I've been back. And how big is the space in the parlor?
It's a pretty big room. It's like a 20 by 40 room. No, wait, that's the family room. The
Okay.
parlor's like 15 by 15.
Okay. I'll clear a few chairs to make sure there's some space for me, and I will wild shape into a dire wolf.
There's a little part of me that thought you were going to set a panda. A panda. All right. You dire shape into a white, or you wild shape into a dire wolf.
Yes.
Your father falls back in his chair and he's like, oh, and he's like, seems to be terrified. Shao, how do you react to this?
I am amazed and mesmerized, but I stand in front of the wolf, in between the wolf and my father, to protect my father for some reason, just instinctually.
Okay.
I smile like a wolfy grin.
And Shao, how do you react to this?
Surprised. But since the transaction happened really quick, obviously it's my brother. So I laugh with a chuckle, and I lean over and grab another glass of rice wine, and I say, "To you, Cade, for entertaining us once again." And I down it.
I'll give. I'm gonna walk up to my brother Cho, give him a lick on the face, and I'll give a little like huff as a wolf, and then I'll turn back into my normal self.
I scratch his head before he does.
Scratch his butt.
All of this occurs in literally 30 seconds, right? And when you turn back to your normal self, your father kind of sits up and he still looks a little bit shaken. And he says, "My son, you must not reveal this ability to anyone outside of our family."
That's why I only showed you.
Skin changers are... People look upon skin changers with mixed views, my son. Some see them as omens of fortune and blessings from the gods, and others are very suspicious and cautious and even aggressive towards them.
I will heed your warning, Father.
My sons, in 1 week's time, you, your mother, and your sister will board this ship with as many of your belongings as can fit in a crate, and you will go to this new world of Nisia to claim our family's holdings on the island of Amaran. And I look forward to joining you but a few months later to begin our family's newest chapter. And he raises a toast to you. And he drinks. And that is where we will end this episode of High Adventure. We'll see you on the next one. Make sure you like, subscribe, and click on that notifications bell. Peace out, everybody.
Well, hello, it's me, Wizzy. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. And then don't forget to tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching, and crafting videos and DM tips and pro tips for vlogging and all sorts of gaming things. And also you could watch Bill eat food and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.